We always wondering that, okay, but this looks like $1 million budget, or this looks like it was done in about 3 months when we were asked to create a great campaign in 3 days. So how do we go about it? So I thought, everybody talks about storytelling, but let me look at the practical side of it. So this is what I've called my presentation, what I call the currency of emotion. It's about stories that make brands valued and how we can practice it. I have alternatively a different headline as well. So you can select what should be the topic of my presentation. Stories are same, but yeah, this is a different headline because we all know, and we've all grown up on stories, haven't we? And think of it, our grannies were the original OGs. Yeah. So I thought this perhaps makes it a little more better, a little more connected, and of course a lot more emotional as well. And that's exactly what stories are all about. What are we in today's world, and why do we need stories? Because this is what it is. We're all drowning in information while starving for wisdom. So there's information hitting us at all points, at every point in social media, news, whatever you open on the digital media. But there's so little that you can really take and imbibe and use it for your own good. So it reminded me of the cavemen, and then I thought about LinkedIn. You wonder what's the connection? Because storytelling is an act that's been going around since millennia. You know, the caveman is perhaps the first storyteller. Whatever hunt that he got, he drew it on some cave. And because of that, anthropologists figured the history of man. And if you're wondering what LinkedIn is all about, today you actually have designations called storytellers. So I thought that poor caveman had no idea that he could actually get a corporate role there. So what's brand storytelling all about? It's a story of how a brand actually helps people and makes them interact with the brand. So in short, storytelling allows brands to connect with consumers at a personal and emotional level. So what happens is you have a memorable and impactful experiences that resonates long after the ad is seen and done. So many of us remember some famous Fevicol ads, which were perhaps done 25 years ago. Why? Because it just gets sticky because those stories connect with all of us. This is research. According to Harvard Business Review, our brains are genetically programmed to enjoy stories, and in today's media-saturated world, a good story is often the most effective way for marketers to grab the audience's attention. And we all know that, but most importantly, the last point is what you need to know when you're actually doing the creative piece of work. People are more inclined to remember a good story rather than a list of events, benefits, or features that your product delivers. How do we get started with that? Firstly, define your brand heart. That's the core purpose that you want to shine through in your brand story. And when I mean brand story, it need not be only television. It need not be only a digital film. It could be a print ad. It could be anything that your brand puts out there to sell better. And stories help you sell better. You need to obviously know your target audience. I mean, that's quite obvious. So you can create a personal connection with them. And then the most important thing that all kinds of planners and all kinds of creative people always look for, which is the idea hook. What can you do, or how can you say it in a manner where the benefit is crafted in a very, very interesting manner? Obviously, you have to keep it simple. Complications doesn't work today because people don't even have time to even look at a 2-second commercial today. Typical structure, we do it because as we've heard that story. It goes as once upon a time there was, then every day this happened, one day this happened. Because of that, something else happened, and until finally, something else. That's a typical structure that as we know it. So you got it? Yeah. Now you start rewriting the story. So that's your fundamental way of doing it. And have a beautiful example to start off. This is Google search. This is about maybe 15 years ago, and the one brand I'm talking about is Google Search. What they did in 2 geographies. One is in France, one is in India. I can talk about the India very proudly because that was our Ogilvy team in India. And the important aspect of it there were 2 stories. The brand was one, the brand love that was created was the same. Take a look at it, and then we'll talk.
Hello, bonjour.
what a fantastic film. But so European, right? That's the kind of love and romance that they kind of do in Europe. But when you come down to South Asia, they're so much more emotional. We really pour it really on the table. This is the film that all of you have seen, but it's worth watching in this context.
ये मैं,
You understand Hindi. So
ये यूसुफ लंगोटिया यार सी मेरा। लाहौर में हमारे घर के सामने एक बड़ा बाग था। उस बाग का गेट बाबा आदम के ज़माने। रोज शाम को हमने वहाँ पतंगे उड़ानी और उसके बाद जाके यूसुफ के दुकान से झझरिया चुरा के खानी।
झझरिया?
मेरा साहब नमस्ते।
नमस्ते, मेरी पोती मुंबई वाली।
और बेटे क्या हाल चाल है?
बचपन की तंग गली फिर से कूद फांदे, छोटी छोटी मीठी चोरी गांठ लेके बांधे।
हेलो अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
फाजिल स्वीट्स?
हाँ जी। दादाजान, दिल्ली से किसी की कॉल है।
हेलो,
यूसुफ अंकल?
कौन?
जी मैं सुमन बोल रही हूँ दिल्ली से, आपके बचपन के दोस्त बलदेव जी की पोती। याद है बचपन में आप दोनों झझरिया चुरा के खाते थे?
बचपन की तंग गली फिर से कूद फांदे, छोटी छोटी मीठी चोरी गांठ लेके बांधे। एक पतंग सा उड़ता था परिंदों की तरह, परिंदों की तरह, परिंदों की तरह। एक दौर था मन मन मोर था, एक दौर था मन मन मोर था।
पार्टीशन के वक्त हम रातों रात हिंदुस्तान आ गए।
दादू?
यूसुफ दी बड़ी याद आती।
कागजों की कश्तियों में डूबा रहता था, झांकती खिड़कियों में उलझा रहता था। वो भी क्या दौर था, मन पे न जोर था। एक दौर था मन मन मोर था, एक दौर था मन मन मोर था।
भैया थोड़ा जल्दी।
मन मोर।
हाँ जी, कौन? हैप्पी बर्थडे यारा। यूसुफ वो यूसुफ, मेरे बल्लू यूसुफ यार।
Google search. Both are Google search films. They did the same job. It's just the whole cultural context of how we look at emotions in our part of the world versus the European way. That's right. This is right too. But this also actually set a precedent to start the digital films in a long format. This film is almost 3 minutes. And at that time, 30-second or maximum 1 minute was the norm. So this is the film that actually set it up today. And yes, all of us are enjoying great time filmmaking today. A very important point. Logic makes you think. Emotions make you act. And this is a film that we did last year I'm from Ogilvy, Sri Lanka. And we did for the ICC 50 over World Cup that happened last November in India, which India lost the finals to Australia, but Coke was the official, this is for Coca-Cola, who was the official sponsor. And all brands and all other competing brands were making their films. Coke also made films in various countries. But when it came to Sri Lanka, we wanted to do it a little differently because the country's dynamics was different. So because, see, Sri Lanka had seen a lot of setbacks, you all must have heard, economic, political, a whole lot of things. It's all thankfully settled now. But a lot of Sri Lankans migrated. I just heard somebody, the earlier person also talking about migration. And the main thing was nobody believed in the country anymore. Coca-Cola was the official sponsor. They wanted somebody to motivate the team because they said, oh, these guys are not even going to win. And they actually had made the qualifying rounds. Sri Lanka, who were the World Cup winners in '96, actually had to play qualifying to play the main draw. So it was like this country and its people all going down the dumps, and this is the people talking themselves. So we had a big monumental thing at hand. How do we now energize these people to start loving their country better? So what we did was just went through a lot of history. And Sri Lanka, among most of the modern countries, has bounced back in history. They've had lots of problems. The tsunami, they had a 30-year war, but every time they kept bouncing back. Even this current recession, they bounced back. So resilience was the one word. And we thought if we could build the campaign on resilience, and Coke, their tagline is real magic, because Coke is always an eternally optimistic brand. So if we could combine both together, we could create something magical. And we actually got the then captain, Dasun Shanaka, who was absolutely out of form. So the client was saying, no, let's take Sangakkara. You're all familiar with cricket, I hope. So some of the legends of Sri Lanka. And I was like, no. If this is the team that's going, the leader of this team needs to say something. You know, there's no point getting some previous great or the previous winner. We're talking about today's context. So this gentleman was the captain, Dasun Shanaka. And the whole film was how he was telling Sri Lankans that we've gone through a lot of shit. Let's believe in ourselves. And when you see the end of the film, you realize that he was actually addressing his own teammates. That was one of those dressing room talks. Through the brand lens, of course, because next thing is, where's the brand coming in? Coke, like I said, is the eternal optimist. And we believe that it's one of those brands that tells you, let's believe and do this together. So for the 22 million fans, that's the population of Sri Lanka, their cricket team was heading out to India as ambassadors of this collective faith. So we just translated real magic to believing is our magic, because resilience had to be an integral part of it. So this film, of course, this was the most viral film of last year in Sri Lanka. It did exceedingly well. Of course, Coke is already the #1 brand, but it just did great for them. This is Dasun.
පුදුමයි නේද? හැමදේම නැති වෙලා. එක දෙයකින් ආයෙ පටන් ගන්න දන්න මිනිස්සු.
Are you open?
Yes.
දැන් ඇති කියලා අතහැරලා දාලා යන්න වෙද්දි නෑ තව ටිකක් බලනවා කියලා කියන මිනිස්සු.
Hello.
නතර වෙන්න වෙද්දි ඉස්සරහටම යන මිනිස්සු. බින්දෙන පාරට හැදෙන එක. වැටෙන පාට නැගිටින එක. ඒක තමයි ලංකාවේ අපේ මැජික් එක. අපේ විශ්වාසය අපේ මැජික් එක.
It also just helped us that before going into the match, all the cricketers do a huddle. And that to me was the ultimate symbol of collective belief. And if that's going to be our magic, that's the way we go and play. When do audiences connect with people? When they feel they're just like them. So my advice to all of you is, whatever you do and whatever you're creating, your stories, keep it as real as possible, because the emotions are real, connections are real. Just look at this beautiful film that we did it in Mumbai. I was not part of this team, but this was done a couple of months ago, and it won at Cannes as well. It's just a fantastic film.
ये हैं वार्डन पिल्लई। इन्हें अपनी नौकरी से नफरत है। इनके हाथ में 2 फाइल्स हैं, पर ये सिर्फ एक ही चुन सकते हैं। पहली सुनील की, जिसे ल्यूकीमिया है, दूसरी दीपा की, जिसे लिम्फोमा है। लेकिन वार्डन पिल्लई सिर्फ एक ही को चुन सकते हैं। दीपा को बारिश बड़ी पसंद है, क्योंकि बारिश में लीचियां आती हैं, और दिल के आकार वाली टॉफियां सुनील की फेवरेट हैं। लेकिन वार्डन पिल्लई सिर्फ एक को ही चुन सकते हैं। दीपा के बचने की संभावना थोड़ी ज्यादा है, पर सुनील अपने मां बाप का इकलौता है। दीपा के पिता सिक्योरिटी गार्ड हैं, और सुनील के माता पिता ईंट की भट्टी में काम करते हैं। लेकिन वार्डन साहब सिर्फ एक को ही चुन सकते हैं। ये दोनों शहर में कैंसर के मुफ्त इलाज के लिए आए हैं, पर अब शहर में रहने के पैसे खत्म हो चुके हैं, इसलिए ये फाइल्स उनकी आखिरी उम्मीद है। वार्डन पिल्लई अपनी नौकरी से नफरत करते हैं, क्योंकि वो सिर्फ एक को ही चुन सकते हैं।
Yes, that was for a cancer hospital in Bombay. And, you'd think, yeah, hospitals, these kind of these situations are easy to create stories on. But sometimes what happens is the simplest things are the most difficult. And you need to keep it as linear as possible. Warden Pillai hates his job. It begins with, he hates his job in the end. Why? For a very simple reason. And the most important aspect I'd liked in the film is when you look at cinematography also, when you create a film, it's that penultimate shot before it goes to him, but it showed both the forms and the pen in the center. Because to me, that's symbolic of indecision. He cannot decide because both of them require his signature. So that, moments like that make conversations happen, make connections happen, and make brands live. This won at Cannes big time this year. And who doesn't know of St. Jude's Hospital? It's a small cancer hospital in Bombay. There's a Tata Memorial, which is the largest and the biggest funded. But most people today know about St. Jude's Hospital. That's where storytelling really works. And if you thought I'm going to make you all teary, there's something a little more funny here. And like I said right in the beginning, I wanted to make this a little more practical. These are stories that all of us here can write. Depending on the brand, depending on the benefit, it just makes you get away from the scenario that you normally are used to, take a leap on the briefs that you get, and see which are the buttons you can press, which have never been pressed before. That makes the story fresh, new, and most importantly, something that's very relatable. These are the key points that you need to keep looking at. And sometimes, we are told that the client wants this, client wants that. Now, the next thing is, how do I create a story on that? Now, a typical thing is, especially for all those who work on FMCG brands, it's about product benefits. There are sometimes clients says, I want to get all the product benefits explained. So typically the creative guy would come to me and say, hey, now this is a brief. What do you want me to do? I said, yeah, create a story. But they want all the product benefits there. So I'm just going to list them. No, you don't need to. Take a look at this. That first word, humor, is something that we all need in advertising big time. It was very prevalent in the 60s and 70s. It just sadly has died because a lot of marketing people want things to be very factual, and they have a feeling that consumers are humorless. That's not the case. We can actually do with some humor too, and humor helps you recall better. Take a look at this.
ทุกคนครับ นี่แฟนผมใบเฟิร์นครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
ไหว้พระเถอะหนู ยังไงปลายปีเนี้ย แม่ขอหลานชายนะ ไม่ต้องเครียด สบาย
สบายอยู่แล้วค่ะ เพราะใส่ซาบีน่าบราเลสแม่ก็สบายเหมือนกัน ด้วยเทคโนโลยีสกินไลท์เบาบางแนบเหนือ เปิดอกรับความสบายทั่วหน้าซาบีน่าบรา
ทุกคนครับ ทำใจสบายๆนะครับ ผมเป็นหมัน
สบายอยู่แล้วเพราะน้าใส่ซาบีน่าบราเลสที่มีคลาวออนเทคโนโลยีนุ่มสบายเหมือนไม่ใส่บราซาบีน่าบราตระกูลเรายังมีหมวยเล็กอีกคน ยังไงก็ได้อุ้มหล่ะ
สบายๆนะ
สบายอยู่แล้ว เพราะมี Airflow เทคโนโลยีให้อกเย็นสบายแต่แฟนหนูเป็นผู้หญิงนะ
สวัสดีค่ะ
สบาย
สบายอยู่แล้วค่ะ
สบายเปิดอกรับความสบายทั่วหน้าซาบีน่าบราเลสยังไม่ต้องซื้อก็ได้ ไปลองก่อน สบายมากแล้วสบายซาบีน่าบราเลส
Look at that. Yeah, that's product benefits. It's all about how the bra works, right? Air circulation, how comfortable it all is. It made many people feel uncomfortable, that's a different matter. But in terms of a brand, it just worked wonders. Another thing we typically get is we don't have big budgets. So how do we create a commercial when you don't have big budgets? Because a lot of people do pretty fancy stuff. Take a look at this. One of our, possibly, it's a globally favored brand. To me, it's actually zero frills, but it lit 1 billion fires. It's an old film. I'm sure many of you have seen it, but it's just so relevant even in today's
Greatness. It's just something we made up. Somehow we've come to believe that greatness is a gift reserved for a chosen few, for prodigies, for superstars. And the rest of us can only stand by watching. You can forget that. Greatness is not some rare DNA strand. It's not some precious thing. Greatness is no more unique to us than breathing. We're all capable of it. All of us.
How much do you think this film would have actually cost? You could shoot this with an iPhone. But that's where storytelling is all about. You don't need big budgets. Nike, yeah, they do billion-dollar films. But when they take these big athletes and stuff like that, because I know LeBron James and Roger Federer wouldn't come cheap. But a film like this, which actually inspired a lot of people. Look at the selection of the model. You know, one really tubby guy. And the whole thing was, if he can run, all of us can run. And that's the whole idea of Nike. At the end of the day, it's an athletic wear company. So yes, that's what's important. You know, how can you really apply yourself and still create some magic, regardless of all other restrictions or obstructions? Because excuses are there aplenty. Then the next thing is, what if it's a product you can only feel? You know, you can't touch it, you can't smell it. That kind of a product, what do? This is an old film, so the resolution is pretty bad, but it gives you the idea very beautifully.
I think I was always misunderstood. People just didn't seem to like me. I think I annoyed them. I got on their nerves. I don't know why. That's just the way it was. Maybe I was too intense. Maybe I came on too strong.
What a nasty man, right?
I don't know. I really can't say. Yeah, it was lonely. Really lonely. But you get used to it after a while. And then, one day, everything changed. Somebody finally accepted me for what I am. Since I've got this job, life is completely different. I finally feel useful, good at something.
You never expected that, right? He was the wind. And all along you thought, what a nasty man. But it's a product that you couldn't feel. But he said that somebody put me to good use. And that was the Epiron, it's a French company. Okay, next thing is, well, we have a campaign that can run for 2 months, so it's worth investing. What if it's just a promo? Should promos be buy 2, get 1 free? Or this Christmas, buy only this, we'll get you a family discount, or whatever it could be. No, you can even have a story there, even for just 1 day. But if you say the story right, it's yes, the ad came out for 1 day, but for the brand, it's forever fandom. So in the UK, the Christmas meal is all about turkey, as you all know. So what do you do when your reason for being is chicken, your KFC? So their answer was, get the chicken to troll the turkey. These were the trolls. Their press ads, billboards, all of them talked about best of luck with turkey this Christmas. The trick to enjoying Christmas turkey, lowering your expectations. And this is where even marketing comes in. Look at what the marketing director of KFC said. We close our restaurants on the 25th, allowing turkey to have its moment in the sun. Every other day, you need not worry, KFC will be there. How magnanimous for a brand to tell its competition now. But yes, in this, it said that KFC rules, right? Simple storytelling. It was high noon, and the whole setup, the music was good, bad, and the ugly. It was a real showdown time. Sometimes, okay, you saw a lot of films. Sometimes all it takes is a headline. This is one of my favorite Land Rover ads of possibly a couple of decades ago. To me, this headline tells me everything. I don't need to know what the brand does. We all know what the brand does. We don't need to know what's the liter of the engine, what's the seating capacity, what's the incline it can climb. Very simple advertising. And in that headline, you have a story. Now, this is old. This is something we did just a few months ago for HSBC. A set of 3 ads. They were doing the Ceylon Literary Festival, and each of these were the writers there. They were showcasing the best writers in the land, Ashok Perry, Shyam, and Louis. And those are the titles that you see, but the story was written by a copywriter. Each of those. So Red Dog, Birds Without Wings, Blue Dog is all Louis' books, but the story that actually connected all of them was written by a copywriter. So how to create a story amongst storybooks. And that actually, when they came and shared the idea with me, I just loved it. And in a flash, I said, why don't we have this as the tagline? Reading could make you a writer. Read more books, and you could even become a writer and write your own book. So there's stories everywhere. Another thing that we did for Women's Day, this International Women's Day that came in March, meet Eva. It's all about domestic abuse. And in Sri Lanka, domestic abuse is very, very prevalent. And a lot of women don't, as in most parts of our world, don't complain for fear of, it increasing or society looking down at them. So what we did was, when we actually did some research, we found that the abuse was actually pretty horrific. And on Women's Day, everybody's always giving platitudes and stuff like, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, and flowers and the works. We said, forget it. Let's take the bull by the horns. This is actually what's happening to women. Let's cut the showbazi, as we call it. Let's get straight to the point. And we actually created this installation made with numerous paper cuttings. This is all in Sinhala and Tamil because that's the language in Sri Lanka. We called it the masterpiece of abuse. And when I meant Eva, I meant of end women's abuse. That's why she's Eva. And the best part of it is, each part of her body is a headline that appeared about abuse to that very part. So if it's the eye, someone's eyelids were cut. It's horrific. The cheek had something there. She has only one hand, if you notice. The other hand, because she was wearing somebody else's story, where she was wearing some bangles, and the drunken husband of hers wanted to get the bangles out. It wouldn't come out. He chopped her hand off. So she's actually an installation that we made. We worked with a sculptor. The entire creative team of Ogilvy Sri Lanka has worked on this over a weekend. And we actually, getting those pieces together took a lot of time. But it did wonderfully well. And the kind of emotions it evoked in terms of the people actually, feeling for the idea. We spent nothing, just a little from our pockets, really. And it was actually, the whole campaign budget was a bouquet of flowers. We said, screw the flowers. Now let's talk. And this now has become so powerful. It got written all over. Now we are also trying to lobby Parliament. So this was done for an NGO called Women in Need. They are all about domestic abuse. They've been, playing this cause for a long time to not much of wins in terms of in their kitty. They've been getting a little nudges all over the place, but nobody really embraced what they really wanted and what they stood for. When people saw this, and this installation was in one of the most busiest places in Colombo, it was actually like a statue that came up overnight, people were shocked when they saw it. And the best part of it, most males, even if they were good gentlemen, were shocked to know what their fellow species was actually doing in their own country. Normally, when you have a problem, it's always somewhere else, right? This is happening in my backyard. Could be my neighbors doing something like this. But yes, a story of a completely different kind. And I deliberately wanted to show this to you because, like I said, every story need not be a film, need not be print. Here is an installation idea. It was an out-of-home idea. And of course, we also treated it we had it in ads and print ads and stuff like that. This, in the recently concluded Sri Lanka awards that actually surfaced after many, many years, it won multiple Grand Prix and actually won about 8 awards for this. And this is another one that they all keep talking about nowadays, data. How do you play with data? And a lot of clients have a lot of data. But to me, again, I've always believed that stories are just data with a soul. So if you actually can look into the data, there's life throbbing in there. How do you make that life and take it, encourage it, and bring it to life? Here's a fantastic example, which is a Cannes winner of a couple of years ago.
B E Y N A T H
When you're texting, you're driving blind, right? And they've actually took data and figured that this is the meters that they take. And people were actually shocked. And he just said, I'm just arriving at home. And there was one or two which was just about a heart that was sent, a hug that was sent, just an emoji. But depending on where they were on the road, and that was an empty road, so the car was going at a top speed, it actually covered 100 meters at times just to send one emoji. But that 100-meter was driven blind. That's the end of story. That's a fabulous way of how we could actually use data. I have another example as well. This is something that we did at Ogilvy, again, probably 2 months ago. This was done in Europe, and this is about endangered animals. Now, everybody talks about how you can help endangered animals. Lots of campaigns are done. But here, what we did was we actually created a living font. And I mean a living font is actually a typeface, a font that lives to protect all life in the animal kingdom. And we call it the endangered typeface. And this is how it works.
Earth is facing the 6th mass extinction. Species are vanishing at a frighteningly fast rate. We are the ones responsible, and only we can write a different story. The endangered typeface, a living font where each letter represents a different animal, and as the number of individuals decreases, the corresponding letter disappears at the same rate, while the font is updated with data from the red list of threatened species. Donate, download, and use it to spread the word. A living font born to protect all animal life.
Each font has live data embedded in it. So there's this ICUN red list of threatened species, and as per their records, as the animal keeps disappearing, the font starts losing its clarity to a point that it actually disappears, and you won't have possibly a letter or two in the lexicon. And as I come to a close, I think this is, from our parts of the world, I firmly believe that a lot of great ideas come from insights, a lot of insights come from culture. And all of us are really privileged to live in lands that are full of, they're brimming with culture, really. So the whole thing is, when you sometimes are stuck, you don't know, you have this writer's block, or you have the art director's hernia, or whatever you want to call it. Like I said in the beginning, no excuses. One surefire way of trying to get an idea, at least a spark of it, is look around you. There is a film happening even as you travel from home to office. Just be observant. Open your 2 ears. Let the wind pass through. And like they say, wind fertilizes, right? So inside gets fertilized very beautifully. as the wind passes by. And a lot of these things actually come from culture. You can see the culture around you. You can see behavioral patterns around you, people interacting. Each thing, if you actually look at it and seed it into a brand or what the brand wants to do, a particular brand wants to do, there's a film there, there's an idea there, there's a print ad there, whatever it be. There's probably an installation there. So bring the outside inside. Get all of this knowledge, put it in, and you'll see something fantastic. This was done in India a couple of years ago for Radio Mirchi. Radio Mirchi is a very well-known FM station owned by the Times of India. And their whole tagline was, Mirchi sunne wale always khush. So all those who listen to Radio Mirchi is always happy. So how do you make a film like that? You know, it's all happy, happy, happy. But how do you make a film memorable?
मैं रुदाली हूँ। जब कोई दुनिया से चला जाता था, तो रोने के लिए हमें बुलाया जाता था।
ये रुदाली है या जोकर?
पर इस नई पीढ़ी से तो रोया भी नहीं जाता। पहले का जमाना कुछ और ही था।
You cried like he was your father.
दिल खोल के रोते थे, तो लोग भी दिल खोल के मान सम्मान देते थे। पर अब रोना मैं इनको सिखा के रहूंगी। अरे ढंग से रो।
अगर तुम माँ का अपमान करो तो मुझे
अरे कोड़ी में चुपती भी रहो।
अम्मा जी आपको बुलाया है। अरे अम्मा जी आज नहीं, कल बुलाया है।
चलो माने। ऐसे ही रोना है।
मैं जाऊं तो इनको मत बुलाना।
अम्मा, ये सब इसकी गलती है।
मिर्ची सुनने वाले ऑलवेज खुश।
So Rudali is a concept in Rajasthan. It's still prevalent today, but it's obviously diminishing. But these used to be, these town criers were very, very famous. And we just borrow from culture and just see how you can beautifully create a narrative. This one, okay, if that was a fun brand, Radio Mirchi, it's an FM brand. You could also do something for, say, a serious product or a serious company or a serious sector. Finance. This is what HSBC did.
The English believe it's a slur on your host's food if you don't clear your plate. Whereas the Chinese feel you're questioning their generosity if you do. At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge, which is why we have local banks staffed by local people in more countries than anyone else. HSBC, the world's local bank.
Yeah, that's finance for you. The boring, tired, from a brief perspective, okay, when you get it, oh no, what do we do here? Well, you can do magic. Borrow from culture and use it beautifully. And it just worked because I think that's one of the best taglines I've seen for a corporate in years, the world's local bank. It just allows you, and especially when today's world is all about globalization and, more importantly, glocalization, where you are global in your outlook, but you're local in the way you feed your brand. So, to conclude, why is brand storytelling important? Because in a crowded place, simple. It humanizes your brand. Just gives it that personality, that life. It's something that you can really connect to almost as a friend. It allows you to build more authentic connections that go beyond mere transactions. Because that's where everybody wants sales. David Ogilvy said in the 50s, sell or else. And advertising's role, don't get me wrong, is to sell a brand. But doing so in today's world, which is so fragmented, storytelling really helps you sell. It fosters a community of engagement with your audience. You must have heard of the HOG, the Harley Owners Group. So even like-minded people who all share their common love for a brand come together, they create a frat and have fantastic communications. So it just gets communities together, and that's how loyalty is built, where people connect on an emotional and a personal level. Most importantly, for all marketers here, it's not a one-stop story. As your brand evolves, so should your story. So my last slide is, well, the Olympics are just over. So you must be wondering why the bronze and the silver medalist. So all of us love to tell stories and stuff like that, but I always believe you need to have that intent, that hunger to do something different. So you know the fundamental difference between a bronze and a silver medalist? Any guesses? Ideally, a silver medalist should be more happier, right? No. The silver medalist is always sad because he won after losing. He lost a gold. So while he's standing on the podium, having won a silver, in his mind it is, shit, I lost the gold. So he's won after losing. The bronze medalist is just happy to be on the podium. He won. He won because he won. He was better than so many others. So that's a thought that I want to take with you, you guys to take with you. Because in our world, in our daily lives, we are always fraught with situations where you always wonder, sometimes even, am I in the right place? Did I even choose this profession? Or did the profession choose me? Should I, somebody else, a headhunter calls and says, hey, this is a great opening in a bank. Should I just shift to the client side? All these feelings keep coming by. But the most important thing is, you need to appreciate what you have, be grateful for what you have, and forget of being sad for things that you don't have. It's not in your hands. So I just want to leave you with a thought that nothing stops you from writing your golden story. The gold that you want to receive is all in your hands. So just go for it and create, thrive. I want to know and hear from all of you as legends in our industry as time passes by. Thank you so much.